We get into the nitty gritty on this week's episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show, whether it's a format change for the upcoming fantasy MLR year or some of the changes we might notice while watching matches in Major League Rugby 2026. We talk about it all. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 182 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR with you each and every single week as we continue to count down the final days into the start of MLR 2026. Matt Yee, I am Ryan Yee, and Matty, it's hard to believe it, but man, we are just like a little over a couple weeks away from the start of the season, and I mean, I couldn't be more excited, man. How are you? How's everything with you, dude?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking good. I'm excited for the drafting that's going to happen. I'm excited
Hmm.
for the stress that's about to happen. But look, I mean, we've had a big couple of weeks of announcements. We know that we're going to get a chance to play with the old legend Jam Delay MLR stats.
Yeah, Andrew
We get to
Coe
play
as
with the
well.
old actual MLR legend Andrew Coe.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, if you missed it, Coe pseudo retired 2 weeks ago. That's 2 week old news, or week old news or something like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Like this is going to be a good year. I think. I think a lot of high quality rugby. That's for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, we've had a busy offseason. Obviously, the MLR has had a busy offseason. We've I think beat that dead horse all offseason long in terms of us talking about how hectic it has
Hey,
been. But hey, we
you know
yeah, what
what's
do you say,
getting
Matt?
me? No, I was just saying. You know what's getting me even more excited?
Hmm?
The fact that California Legion, all the teams, we got all the teams pretty much.
Yep,
Pretty much,
pretty
we have all
much.
the teams.
Pretty much. There may be a couple straggling names here as we kind of finalize those final rosters, particularly with the California Legion. But yeah, for the most part, it's all wrapped up. But yeah, again, this season we helped you get all prepared and get you through what was a crazy offseason, interviews, special guests, all that stuff. Make sure you go check that stuff out. But it's all about looking ahead now as we continue to get closer to fantasy MLR here in 2026. And I named the show fittingly the nitty gritty because that's what this episode is all about. We're getting into the important details when it comes to fantasy MLR, how you can play fantasy MLR, what fantasy MLR is going to look like this season. We've been alluding to it. We've been saying that obviously a lot of changes with MLR 2026 down to 6 teams. Shifting parts, and obviously that's going to have an effect on how fantasy MLR looks this upcoming year as well. So we have those announcements coming up in this episode, along with Maddie. No shortage of news. On top of those signings that you're talking about, which we will get into in our preseason warm up as we look at some of the early numbers as I built our player database for this upcoming year. But I mean, talk about partnerships. MLR has no shortage of partnerships heading into this year. Plus, a change of the way the game is going to be officiated. Obviously, everyone by now has heard that big change, the shift from TMO to the referee review system, and a interesting way with a special appearance from the one and only Nigel Owens to help us get acquainted with this new system. We'll break that down and react to that this episode. So, Maddie, like you said, it's going to be fun, and it starts with getting into all these things. Any last bits of words before we do it? I do want to give a shout out to Vandy. Vandy couldn't be on today's episode today. His
Shout out
son
Lou.
Louis's birthday. So shout out to Louis. Happy birthday to him. But other than that, I think we're ready to go to dive right in.
Let's do it.
All right. And make sure you're following though us at the Fantasy Ruckers before we do. Handles up above. If you're watching on YouTube video, down below on the description. If you're listening in on the pod, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Fantasy MLR is here and you want to be first in the know on all things fantasy MLR if that's what you are participating in this season. Discord community as well. Link to join that down below. That is our main communication platform for our fantasy MLR leagues, plus the official platform for fantasy rugby here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show, thefantasyruckers.com. All right, Maddie, let's get into the news.
News dump.
All right, TFR episode 182 news
Whoa.
dump. And I'm going to save, Maddie, the final straggling signings. I know we usually talk about the signings here in this portion of the episode, but I'm going to save those for our preseason warm-up we have
Mm.
just around the corner, where we are going to talk about some of these rosters and talk about some of the fantasy outlook on these rosters, and maybe a little bit of a teaser to what's to come with some extra content we have coming out this week. That we know that you and it's our favorite time of the year when it comes to
You
making some
get
of these
things
predictions,
wrong.
which people, which people will be so happy to see this time of the year. But first, let's get into some of these announcements. And I guess why not just dive right into the thing that we alluded to? Probably the biggest announcement that we have heard in terms of the changing of the game and the officiating of the game, and that is the switch from TMO, the TV match official, to a new thing that MLR has come together with called the referee review system, where they are essentially saying that they are going to speed up the game, use this new system to keep the flow going. Again, I alluded to it, a nice little appearance from the one and only Nigel Owens to help us introduce that. But the key takeaways here, because I know everyone has kind of, if you're in the MLR, if you're a fan of the MLR, you're in the know, and you've, I'm sure, read all the articles and all the content that's come outside of it. But the key takeaways here: the on-field referee can request assistance from this referee review system on any play that they want to verify and get right. Or the bigger thing here, which is interesting, and it's a very North Americanized thing that they're implementing here, is a challenge system. Now, 2 challenges per team per match. If they get a challenge correct, they retain that challenge. If they lose it, or if they get it wrong, they do lose it. It is the team captain that will initiate the challenge and clearly communicate with the official on what play or infraction or what have you wants to be reviewed. And then again, I guess the biggest takeaway here, Maddie, we were just talking about the switch from, I guess, the TV and match official looking at the video and making a judgment call there. We are giving the power back to the referees on the field, where there is now this what they're calling the in-stadium replay officer, who will pull up different angles of the play to help the official make the judgment call. But ultimately, it will be the referee on the field who is making that call, making that change, or deciding whether or not that challenge goes through. So overall, interesting change here. Maddie, your initial thoughts to the referee review system?
Um, yeah, I mean, like, it kind of just sounds like they put a different name to describe what the TMO was always meant to be. I think it's no doubt that our league, specifically the MLR, when you compare it with other leagues around the world, has particularly had an issue in relation to how the TMO works and how the
Yes.
TMO has been functioning. I think that this is probably due to one, TMO is incredibly new in North America. With the MLR, this came incredibly new. The refereeing systems within North America are not necessarily handled to understand exactly what, have experience with TMO and be able to use it effectively and not
Mhm.
impact the flow of the game. So I think however they do it, whatever, whether it's a rebrand or whatever, I think this is great for the MLR. The fact that they are forcing the TMO, or what are they calling it now, Ryan?
The in-stadium replay officer,
Sure,
the
sounds
ISRO.
the ISRO. All right, got it. So the ISRO is now, I guess the power is taken into the refs to decide when he wants to go up to the ISRO or not, which is again exactly kind of how things were meant to be. So that part, happy with, love it. I think it's going to improve the game of play. Now the challenges. This is where I'm like, I feel like they just don't like. I feel like the league just isn't learning. Like I don't understand. Like it makes no sense to me. Like if you knew anything about rugby, you would know that Super Rugby has tried challenges 3 or 4 years ago in their league
Hmm.
competition as well, and it lasted 1 year, and it was
Yeah.
complained about maybe a quarter way through the season. Like with challenges, you expect these things to be used on these big game defining plays and like you expect it to use sparingly, but no, they're going to use it on a knock on at the 45th minute that doesn't even mean anything. And
Yeah.
it's like you're just going to end up slowing down all that
Hmm.
time that
Hmm.
you just added back by taking away all that time that the TMO was essentially challenging plays, challenging these minute plays that were coming in. So I think what you've done is essentially you've done something great and then you've added something that has already been tried and tested around the world and has already proven to fail.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say,
In a by the way, sorry, Ryan,
yeah.
in the league, by the way, that does not is one of the games that does not require as much help in the game, in the excitement and the flow of the game.
Mm,
Like Super Rugby already has that locked in. And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't love the second part, but look, it steps in the right direction for the most part.
Yeah, and I guess that it's a twofold piece here. Again, there's the referee review system piece of it and shifting from TMO to, I guess, this new procedure that gives the power back in the hands of the on-field official. And then it's mixing in something that is brand new in terms of this challenging. So what I want to touch on first is that we've been on this show, or at least I've definitely said on this show before, that possibly a biased opinion, but I've always been the proponent that I think rugby is one of the best, or I should say, well officiated sports in the world,
When
right?
done
Or in
correctly.
all thing. The reason I say that is because instead of, the emphasis of these challenges and all these different things, the emphasis in rugby is just getting the call right. What happened on the field? Did it happen? When we look at it again, let's just make sure that what we see and what we call is the right call, especially in those big time
Can I?
moments.
Sorry, you finish. You finish.
And I do like the fact that we're moving to this referee review system. I do think that it is a issue that has come up in the past, obviously, with how it slowed down the game, particularly in the struggles, like you alluded to, Maddie, of the way that TMO was implemented, particularly in the MLR, right? Like when it comes to Super Rugby and when we watch Super Rugby or Six Nations or any of these marquee leagues or competitions, TMO seems pretty seamless. It's efficient, right? They get the call right. They do it for the most part, right? Obviously, every single system has its flaws, and there are times where it maybe doesn't work to its full capacity. Where the MLR came in this is that we obviously, or the MLR does not have the capacity of what these big time leagues have. So when you had the disconnects, right, that made it seem even slower than what it was, right? You need for TMO to work and for TMO to be done right and well, it needs to be efficient, and the communication between the on field official and the TMO, the TV match official, needs to be efficient. When you're running on the field with a phone to have the person try to
Yeah,
get the call right, right? That's where the delays
and
happen,
yeah, and
right?
I think the other thing is that like all the other big stadiums outside of the world, they have screens within the stadium. The ref is
Right,
looking at the
right.
same screen. The ref is showing, or the TMO is showing the ref what they're looking at, so the ref can
Yeah.
actually make decisions live after seeing the replay. Um, so yeah,
And
there's a bunch of things.
correct me if I'm wrong, Maddie, but I'm pretty sure the TMO, like, aren't they're in these big competitions, they're at the field,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, they're at the field. They're
Yeah.
at the field.
And where the MLR has worked and the way the broadcasts have worked, for those of you who don't know, a lot of the times these broadcasts were um, called off site, right? Like our play-by-play people and our color people were actually watching the game like how we are watching it, not
Yeah,
actually on site. And that also extended to some of these TMO officials that
yeah.
we used to work in the
I
past.
mean, you
So,
could see it. They were literally scrolling through the rugby network replays. Like not even
right,
like they have any different replays than we're looking at. They're just looking at the same feed, but in their time. So
right.
um
So you could argue that the referee review system is essentially just turning it into what the TMO is in these other professional leagues, right? You're bringing a
oh
official, right, the ISRO to the stadium. The only difference is instead of the ISRO now having a say in it, it's going to be the on-field official. And Maddie, you
I
mentioned it about the
mean,
jumbotrons being on the pitch and things like that. They're going to use the jumbotrons or the pitch side monitors for the refs to make that call and have those angles available to them. So that's the first part of
couple final points for me. Is just One, uh, I really hope that we can still get to hear the conversations between
Yes.
the ISRO, whatever the heck his name is, and the ref. Two, I really hope, and I know that this is what's going to happen, is that we're going to end up with the same stoppages, the same reviews. Why? Because the ref knows that they can rely on this in the back. They know that all I need to do as a ref, if I'm ever 95% unsure, if I'm ever 95% sure and the 5% is lingering, I'm gonna go upstairs. Why wouldn't
Yeah.
I? Right? Like, so I think that's what's gonna happen. I think, the refs just, I hate to say it, but like apart from one, the refs in this league are quite, I would say, like they're just not as good as the quality worldwide, and it is what it is, and they're going to rely on they're going to be less confident in their calls. They're going to have to rely on review, and it's going to end up being the same slowdown. But I hope it's not that way. But I
What
just
what
see
I
it being
think
that way.
though, what I think, Maddie, is that I think we're gonna end up with the same amount of stoppages,
Yeah.
right?
I
But
mean, if they want to take away stoppages, let's go back to the drawing board. Just take away the water break. Like, you don't need it.
there you go.
You don't need it in March.
um, I think we're gonna have the same amount of stoppages. It's just that those stoppages, I think, are going to be a little bit more efficient, right? With everything being on site, I think it's just going to maybe work a little bit seamlessly. I don't think we're going to have those moments where a guy's going to have to run on the field with a phone for the ref to hear what the TMO is saying, and all these like kind of clunky and janky kind of things that happen, and that we've experienced in the MLR. So I think this does remove that. Again, it's to my point about this referee review system really is just what TMO is at other places. It's just that you're now removing the power of what the TMO person can actually do and the decisions that they can make. So I think that's going to be in the direction. If we're going to stop some of that jankiness and some of that clunkiness, I'm all for it. So I think that's a big part. The second part, though, Maddie, is this challenging part, which obviously you've said that you're not quite with. I think I'm right there with you. It is a very, like I mentioned, a North American-y type thing to include in this. But I always have been the proponent of, you know, it's just something that we have here, and it adds, I guess, another layer of, I guess, skill or competition. Like they implemented it in hockey, and now you got people that are watching to see, whether or not they challenge a call or not. But like, why can't we just get the call right? Like, why can't we just, instead of having to like, right, if they're there, like, just let's get the call right. And what's the difference between the ref going upstairs and be like, oh, I think we should review that, and their judgment on doing that versus, I guess, the ref not seeing that or knowing that mistake, and I guess the captain noticing it. And what's going to be interesting too is that in all these other sports where they've implemented challenges, Maddie, and I know you're more familiar with it in the way that it turned out in Super Rugby, but in challenges of all other sports, you think of baseball implemented a challenge. Football, obviously, they've been kind of the main staple of what the challenge has been. Hockey implements the challenge, right? Basketball has implemented the challenge. Literally, our power four sports in North America have a challenge system. So obviously, MLR following in those footsteps. The difference between rugby is that there's no coach on the sideline that can initiate the challenge on how that usually happens in all the other power four sports. It's clearly said that the captain has to do that, right? What is the time difference between when they go that? It's not like the captain has a bird's eye view to see what has happened, right? If he misses it or something, is it the nine running up to the captain and be like, oh, like I saw this happen at the breakdown. I want you to challenge it. But when does that happen when the flow of play is going? You know what I mean? And is it what 5 minutes passes by and you can challenge the call? Like the captain does not have that view. Where in all these other sports, the coach is watching from a like outside looking in perspective. Does that make sense? Like that's that like it's going to be weird because only the captain can initiate the challenge, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's the. I mean, I think it's the fact that the MLR would be the only American sport where you can challenge a call, get it wrong, and not lose anything.
That's true. That is true too.
You have
You
no
lose the challenge,
consequences.
I
You
guess
lose a
that's the biggest
challenge, but that's
penalty.
it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's all you get. Like
There's no
the
deterrent, and that leads to your point,
yeah.
Maddie, where like this is where it's kind of counterintuitive to what they're trying to do in speeding up the game is that if it's a knock on that happens at the 40 in the 21st minute when the game is like not really decided even close to it and this a challenge happens, like what is preventing me from saying, I'm going to challenge that? Why not? Like I
Yeah,
don't. There's no consequence.
what's quicker?
Mm.
The TMO saying, yeah, knock on, and then going
Getting the
right
call
there.
right. Getting the call right. So I guess overall, I think you, Maddie, and I are in the same boat here. I think we agree with speeding up the game. I think the referee review system does that. I think, though, where maybe this is a little bit interesting and it gets a little bit convoluted and maybe something that not anyone was really asking for, I don't think. Like, I had never heard of anyone wanting to have a challenge system in the MLR, at least the conversations that I've had with people and players and coaches
No,
in the
but the
league.
refing had to change.
Pardon?
The refing and the TMO, it had to change.
Well, yes, no, I agree that. So that's what I'm saying though. The referee review system is a definite big plus, and I'm excited to
Well,
see
we'll
how that's
see.
implemented. The challenge part is the part where it gets a little bit gray, and I don't know how counterintuitive that is to the questions or the things that they're aiming for this to solve. We'll end it here, Maddie, with the three big goals that at least the MLR, according to their press release, wants the referee review system to address: reduce game disruption, enhance transparency, and bring fans inside officiating reviews. So I'll ask you first, Maddie. Does the RRS reduce game disruption?
Depends how they use it.
Okay. Does it enhance transparency?
Depends how they use it.
All right. And do they bring fans inside officiating reviews?
Depends how they use it. I don't understand. So you want to bring fans inside, which means you're going to make them hear the conversation between the refs and the thing. Now, if this review is enough for a fan to have to understand and listen to it, is it again not the same as TMO?
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I like. I think that's where I am saying that.
I just think I know where this is going to end up. It's going to end up with refs on the field relying on the TMO, and then the players making challenges on these. And then the challenges actually make things a little more confusing because now you don't know, okay, when is it a viable challenge versus what's not? Super Rugby is like, oh, this isn't eligible for a challenge because we passed 3 phases already. And now you can't
Yeah,
challenge it. It's
yeah,
like, okay, well, but that was clearly wrong. And it's like,
yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. The only time will tell. I'm sure there's other things that the league has implemented that will continue on, and maybe this is one of them, such like water breaks, even though they're stupid. So yeah,
Are you hopeful?
I don't
You're just a lot of I don't know, huh? You just
whatever. Like it's just like TMOs stink. This is another rebrand of TMOs.
it
Yes,
is.
it could be better. Yes, it could be the same, but it's definitely still going to be disruptions in play.
In a nutshell, and Maddie, you can correct me if I'm wrong at the end, is that I think this is a shift from the way that MLR knew TMO. So is it the way that TMO has been used in MLR historically? Yes, it's different. It's now the RRS, or the referee review system. However, I would argue that the referee review system, outside of not allowing that TV match official to interject, is the same thing as what other leagues have implemented, because this ISRO, this TMO person, has been on site for other leagues. That's not the case
Mind you, the
here in
TMO
MLR.
does inject as needed around the world. They're just
No, I know. I guess what I'm saying though is that
yeah, that's fine.
like
That's fine. I get it. I know
yeah.
what you mean.
All right, let's move on to now, I guess, another partnership here. A couple that we need to announce. Announcement of OS Studios as being MLR's now broadcast and marketing partner in that multi-year partnership. You may have noticed that the MLR has kind of been trying to brand itself differently. The content that it's been coming out with, whether it was the hype video, whether it was the announcement of the RRS, it's been a little bit of a different look, a different feel than what it's been in past. And I think a lot of that has been because of this new partnership with OS Studios. The biggest part of it is that they are now bringing broadcast teams on site. For those of you who didn't know, again, what we alluded to with that RRS conversation is that a lot of the time these play-by-plays and broadcast teams have not been on site. There'd be an on-site crew that was videotaped or that was gathering the game, but when it comes to the actual call of it, they were on site. But this time with OS Studios, it is now going to be the case, which is going to be fun. And I think it'll be enhance the quality. I think the league and from who I've talked to within the league are very excited with the product that's going to come out this year, especially with it being showcased on Sunday Night Rugby on ESPN, and a lot of eyes being on this league as it continues to try to grow as we get closer to the World Cup. I think there are a lot of people that are excited with how this partnership is going to impact the way that fans are going to be experiencing the content and the matches that will be played here on weekends.
Good job, MLR.
Man, a few words today. All right. Moving on
I
to
just
the well, I don't know. Like it could be anything. Like I mean, there were times when the play-by-plays, like you could clearly say that they weren't seeing what was they were seeing what we were seeing, right? But the reason why you listen to play-by-play is to experience and feel. And again, this is from someone that's in the industry of like they're supposed to bring the game into your home, right? And it's hard to do that when that person doing that was not there at the field. And I think
yeah.
now having those people at the field, it's going to make that quality better. And it's going to be interesting to see what the different look and feel, the graphics, everything is going to be different. I think the way that people are going to digest games this year is going to be different. It's going to have a different look than how it's felt historically with MLR. This is the first time that they've switched on over since the beginning of the league, from my understanding. So it'll be interesting to see from that. All right, moving on here. And this is probably the piece of news that has the most to do with us here on the Fantasy Ruckers show. And that is possibly the future of daily fantasy sports maybe coming to MLR. You know, we've gone through this cycle many times. We've gone through the emphasis of sports betting when it comes to MLR trying to tap into that space. Well, there's a new partnership between MLR and a company called XCLSV Media, who has now become their exclusive affiliate marketing partner for sportsbook, daily fantasy sports, and prediction markets across the US and Canada. So what that means, and what I understand it as, is this is now the company that will be interacting on MLR's behalf to see how they can tap into these spaces. So I guess I from what I understand, XCLSV is not, they're not a sports book, they're not a daily fantasy sports provider, they're not, but they broker these relationships with these people, and that could bode well here for the MLR in terms of actually being able to solidify some of these relationships and some of these things that fans are interested in doing, including daily fantasy, obviously, and why many of our listeners and viewers listen to this show with fantasy sports. We're excited. I would love it if they could bring something here. If I didn't have to calculate all the stats on a spreadsheet when I first started and all these things, it would make my life a whole lot easier. But no, we had to find a way. But hey, who knows? Maybe in the future with this partnership, there will be something that can come here for us to play and for us to do that. But until then, obviously, you're going to play Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Rucker Show. And we'll see where this takes us. But hey, it sounds like there's going to be ambassador programs. Maybe we can maybe tap into that and see what we can go from there. But another partnership here that I guess solidifies what the MLR is trying to do. And this is the first time that I've seen that, whether it's OS Studios or XCLSV. This is like, it sounds like a step in a direction that I had not seen the MLR take in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they realize they can't do it themselves. Like they can't go out and just find a whatever oval E, whatever the heck it was, themselves. They need some help to do it. So yeah, I mean, at least they're putting their hand up.
All right. So obviously the big takeaways, leagues taking steps in these directions, whether it's the RRS, whether it's a new broadcast partner, whether it's now a media group that is going to help broker relationships with content creators, sports books, any of these things to expand the league. Hey, if it's going to get the name out there, I'm all for it. And I guess we'll see what that impact is. Again, these are all things, to Maddie's point, how he has made so clear here on this episode so far, it is a wait and see approach. And we don't know until we know. And we'll find out here in a couple weeks here when the first matches do get played. I know they're testing out RRS at some of the preseason matches. We'll probably hear some rumblings from that and see how that goes. And then obviously when they kick off in that first week, we'll know how it all operates there on that March 28th Saturday for that opening game between the Legion and Anthem Rugby Carolina. All right, let's now shift on over outside of some of this like non-rugby, I shouldn't say non-rugby related stuff, but kind of more, I guess,
So who
corporate related
cares?
stuff. Um, let's talk about a couple notes here that are fun and exciting. The Seawolves revealed their jerseys for 2026. Maddie, what do you think?
Uh, I didn't even see them yet.
Here you go. They're the exact same almost. The home jerseys return. And the away kit makes its debut. It's gray now.
Where are
Do you
they?
see it? Right here. I have it on the screen.
Unveil home and away jerseys. Oh, okay, cool. They look the same.
They're exactly the same, except one's gray.
That's not gray. That's white.
We will wear gray away kit for our preseason match versus the Hartford Harpooners on March 28th.
Well, they're colorblind because that's white.
I think you're colorblind.
That's pretty white to me in their photo.
Either way, I kid around that because again, we've had big jersey reveals in the past. We're getting closer and closer to season. Seawolves are the only ones to do that. Again, I could imagine that most of these clubs have had bigger focuses on changing the look of their jerseys. But either way, Seawolves win it first. Here coming up. Lastly, here, I'd like to talk about partnerships
Yeah, but the
again.
worst part is that they already know what their jersey's looking like. I don't understand. We're a month out. They know everything. You
Well,
can
it's
announce it
just
anytime you want.
it's
So I'm just
Matt. It's
saying
just
it's not like they don't know yet. They all know. They all had to tell Macron, I'm sure, like years, like months ago.
No, man, they still got they're still drawing it up. They're still drawing it's the hot off the
Jeez.
press. No, well, it's
Anyways,
it's similarly to obviously like the California Legion know their roster. Like preseason has started, and the fact that they're still trickling this out is pretty funny. Waiting on that, so that kind of just goes into that pool. Either way, last one to wrap up the news segment here with the partnership between New South Wales Rugby Union, the Waratahs, and California Legion announcing a partnership to strengthen international connections, expanding player opportunities, and developing the next generation of female rugby talent. In this month of Women's History Month, I guess it's apropos that they do include the emphasis on improving and developing the next generation of female rugby talent. But again, just love to see obviously a side here in the MLR partnering with obviously an established rugby club overseas. We've seen it in the past. We've seen parts where it's been benefited. We've seen where it's fallen through. We know DC's ties with the Scottish Rugby Club in the past. I think it's benefited both clubs, and we'll see where this takes them.
yeah, I mean, we'll find out. We've seen a lot of, like you said, we've seen a lot of clubs partner and then fold. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, Maddie, your favorite time of the show.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee with the most important Fantasy Ruckers League update of the year. And I alluded to it, the nitty gritty. People have been waiting for it. It's time that we announce it. The format for Fantasy MLR here in 2026.
Ooh.
Before we get into that, though, if you don't know already, the sign up is open to play Fantasy MLR this upcoming season. Link down below in the description to sign up. Fill out a Google form. We'll get you slotted into a league. If there's people that you want to play with, you fill that all out. We'll make sure we'll find you and your friends, whether you have played, have never played, have watched rugby, have never watched rugby. Wherever you may come from, we'll find a spot for you and a league for you to play Fantasy MLR here in 2026. But for those who are returning, the commissioners will be reaching out and starting to get that process going in terms of gathering numbers of who were in leagues last year. And again, those new members will get you slotted into where you need to be. However, there's a caveat. There are going to be some changes here to Fantasy MLR in 2026 as expected due to the offseason changes. Obviously, we've gone down to 6 teams. There's less players, which is going to cause there to be a format change in Fantasy MLR. We had 8 teams per league on average last season. Going to be tough to do that this year with only 6 physical teams here this upcoming year. So, Maddie, do you want to know what the strategy or what the format changes are, and then I want to know how that changes your strategy possibly for the upcoming year.
You're asking me like I can say no. So yes.
All right. I love to hear it. Yes is the right answer. All right. Maddie, going into this year, there are 3 big changes here. There is a positional change, there is a points change, and there is a league structure change. We'll start with the league structure change. So to emulate kind of what happens with the league and to emulate kind of the numbers and to make sure that everyone has viable rosters, right? And no one is running around and picking up guys that aren't having any fantasy impact. Again, like I alluded to, having 8 teams in a league that has 6 teams, it's kind of tough to do that. So we are dropping the maximum team number to 6 team maximum this upcoming year. So for those 8 team leagues, we will have to be kind of concising those down and expanding and making more leagues and formulating that. Not saying anyone is going to be missing out on fantasy MLR this year. That will definitely not be the case. We want to have as many league members and as many leagues as possible. But we'll make sure that those leagues are distributed accordingly, with now there being a 6 team league maximum. And that also means, with this being a 11-week season, obviously with that first week being the odd week with only one match being played, we will not be playing fantasy MLR in that first week. That is all intents and purposes called week 0. And then we will be continuing the fantasy season from MLR weeks 2 onward, with the finals, the fantasy MLR finals, being in week 11 and the semifinals being in week 10, meaning that if you're in a 6 team league, the top 4 make it into the playoffs, bottom 2 get kicked out, and then you play the semifinal and final championship. Maddie, thoughts on that?
I mean, hey, it's like less people to beat, I guess, for the championship. But no, I think it was just needed. It was a necessary change with the way that the league went this offseason. So love to just see the fact that we're still competing.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean, hey, you can team up like the Fantasy Ruckers here, where Matt, myself, and Vandy all share a team, co-manage a team, and enjoy the fruits of our labor and our wins even more together as a unit. Isn't it a beautiful thing, Maddie?
No, of course.
All right. From a positional change standpoint, we are removing the defensive set piece position. Obviously, with there being only 6 teams, for everyone to be scrounging to try to get that, especially when you reach a week that has a bye, which again, I know there's not that many here this season as compared to last season's. There's only, I guess, that week 6 that really has that, with Carolina and California doing it. But again, having that, it's going to be a little bit tough and a disadvantage for people who aren't able to grab a defensive set piece that week, or for people hoarding defensive set pieces as a strategy. Don't want that to happen. And
Mm.
then in turn with that, because again, with some of these high marquee positions where you only have one of them on the field, i.e., the scrum half position and the fly half position, the fly half more importantly, we will be eliminating those as separate entities and combining them into one singular halfback position. And therefore, you draft the fly half, you draft the scrum half, you'll be able to slot them into that spot as that halfback spot. Now, you may be wondering, oh, of course, I'm going to be picking a fly half. They're much more point productive in the past than scrum halves have been, albeit less. Gonzalo Bertranu, who again will be available this year and is a I guess unicorn when it comes to that. A big one that will be changing this year is that there will be no more kicking points. So the whole format that we used to use in the past, with us designating a kicker each and every week, and then those kicking points being calculated for that player as a whole, we're just not going to be including those in their point total. So the advantage of the fly half over the scrum half in that halfback position isn't overblown, because we know how much kicking can add in terms of that. Now, this is not to say that as the league expands, we hope to get back to our regular format. We hope to expand over 6 teams. We hope to include again the defensive set piece spot. We hope to separate the fly half and scrum half position and include kicking points in the future. Again, this is just the best way to go about it here, with only 6 teams being in the MLR. Nonetheless, still just as competitive, just as fun, and just as entertaining as fantasy MLR has ever been.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good choice. I think it would have been tough to try to find a halfback every week uh, in a 6-man league. Like, you're just going to run into problems. So I like this change. Kicking can be interesting. I think it'll really change the value that some guys have. Like a guy that you might have rated higher because the fact that they're kicking for a high scoring team maybe doesn't matter as much anymore. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I could see guys like Joel Hodgson potentially taking a hit. Like, yeah,
Jason Robertson.
Jason Robertson. Yeah, so like,
Yeah.
So we'll see how that impacts it. It'll be
That
super
balances it out.
interesting.
I mean, then
Yeah.
the decision between, I think, a Joel Hodgson or Jason Robertson versus, let's say, Gonzalo Bertranu becomes much closer, I think, if not lopsided in a way that's more attacking threat like Gonzalo. So, again, it's going to be interesting how the dynamics play when it comes to that. But either way, again, in a nutshell, the changes, the big changes heading into Fantasy MLR 2026. No more defensive set piece, fly half and scrum half combined to a singular halfback position, no kicking points, and your leagues this season will have a maximum of 6 teams. And again, the sign up is open for anyone wanting to play fantasy MLR this season. Make sure you do that. Hit the link down below, the Google form you can fill out. We've had increasing numbers each and every year. We hope to continue to increase those numbers as we continue our mission on making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. All right, Maddie, let's get to one of our final segments here in our first preseason warm up of the year.
Preseason warm up.
All right, episode 182's preseason warm up, and it is an early look at the numbers. Let's first get out of the way, like we alluded to it at the beginning of the podcast. Let's get these signings out of the way, which basically puts us on tap for what the player database or the player roster in the MLR is going to look like. Nick Chan, Cole Simu, Fred Apulu, Lance Williams, which we did briefly talk about last week, and Kobe Milne, the one brand new player to the MLR, fly half, all signed with the California Legion to bring their total number up to 30, which is right around what we're expecting these roster numbers to be. I expect maybe 1 or 2 more signings here for the California Legion, but for all intents and purposes, and from what I know from sources, that this is the mainstay. All the staple parts of their team have been released here. So now that you've seen it, Maddie, what are your overall thoughts on the California Legion? And I think the big one, your question with this team has been the fly half position. And they do address that here with the signing of Kobe Mill.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I think he should be a high draft prospect when it comes to fantasy MLR. Like he just came off a really high scoring season in the Shoot Shield in Australia. So we saw last time, you bring a high scorer into the MLR, like Lincoln McClutchy, the year that he came, he was
Mm-hmm.
one of the top point scorer for the NPC Bunnings Cup that year. So you look at the Australian equivalent, the Shoot Shield, and he's the top point scorer and he's a 10. Lincoln McClutchy did pretty well that year. I look pretty optimistic for Kobe Milne as well, and I think he'll be starting in this room as well. I think the other thing, Rad, that I was concerned about is who else is in that center position. I think we look at Nick Chan and we see a lot of potential with him.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that when he did play, he had the opportunity to put up points. I mean, he put up
Mm-hmm.
109.7 fantasy points last year in, what does that look like, around 12-ish games played and around, I would say, averaging maybe around
11
9
games played
points.
last season, averaging about 9.9 points per match.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not too bad for a center. So you like to see his return. Nothing crazy still for this team for me. Um, Nothing that they've announced has necessarily changed my view of it. I think they're still going to be a fairly average team who's going to play exciting rugby.
I mean, I will say that backline is now looking pretty dang good. I mean, I know we got hit with it with kind of the last thing
Sure,
with
I
Joe Mono,
just
but
yeah, I mean, I'm just like I've tempered my expectations because every backline looks good.
yeah, it's true.
So
But I think it looked a lot more grim at the start, which obviously we're
yeah,
going
it
to
obviously looks
speculate.
a lot more grim when there's 3 people on it, but like
Fair enough. Fair enough. So that rounds it out with the California Legion then. And again, maybe 1 or 2 signings coming up. Again, I think all their main staple pieces from what I hear have been announced and we'll go from there. But I guess initial thought then, Maddie, I will ask you this question before I ask you the more important question to you. There's only one team that has superseded 2,000 fantasy points from the players that they have on their team from based on 2025's fantasy point scoring. What team is that?
superseded 2,000.
2,000 total points.
Oh, so I was something dumb like Cal Legion.
It is the California Legion. So the California Legion are the only team, and they're at 2,151.1 fantasy points. Now, mind you, a large portion of that, on top of obviously some of these players and point scoring players that they've accumulated, is that it does feel like they are the team that has the most MLR veterans that are coming back. So I think that would be a big part of it. Obviously, New
A
England's is going to
pretty
be tempered by quite a
huge
bit, who
bias.
have
So
half of that, who have basically a whole brand new roster of New Zealand overseas guys that are going there. But I did think that was an interesting tidbit. With that being said, though,
mm,
the bigger question I want to ask you, though, Maddie, is now that all the rosters are out, what team are you most excited for?
Anthem.
James Dealey, last episode, he's a big Chicago guy this season.
I
What have
mean,
you?
you know me, I'm not a fan of any team. I just watch MLR strictly for fantasy and for the people. I do not care about the teams.
But just
Um,
what roster excites you, though? What? Okay, then I'll
to
frame
me,
it from
look,
a. I'll
to
frame it
me,
in a fantasy sense, then,
no,
Maddie.
to me, there's no other roster than Anthem. Like you just want to see what they can do. They have like based on the year 2 years ago to the last year, they had an improvement in roster for sure.
Hmm.
Based on last year to this year, this is a increased improvement. And I'm excited to see what they can do with the guys that they have because they've got some quality guys, and I think they can pull out a couple wins this year. So I'll say that's probably my most excited from a fantasy perspective. Like, frankly, I'm looking at the big teams that I'm looking for, like Seattle. I'm really excited about fantasy wise. Um, New England, I'm excited about fantasy wise. Um, and yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Bulgari DC is going to continue to be average. Chicago is going to be, they have a good side, and Anthem is going to win one or two games.
And I will say, um, what's been fun as I've built this player database, and now that we have all these players confirmed, just some interesting tidbits heading into this year. We do have, and maybe a smaller number in compared to seasons past, but we do have 17 brand new MLR players this season that will be playing their very first MLR game. Ever, or I should say, no, hold on. There's more than that. Wait, what am I saying? What am I saying? Hold on. We got, wait, one. I need to get a count here. Anyways, 160 returning MLR players. And if I do the math right, that leaves 30 players that
Mm.
are brand new to the MLR. So whether that means international signing, draft picks, pathway players, anything in between. Again, 160 returning players that we've seen in the MLR before, whether that's on a brand new team or on their same team. And then in complement to that, 30 brand new players we haven't seen before, which is going to be fun.
Yep, yep, should be good.
And
Should be
then
good.
that means there's a whole new roster of players, Manny, for you and I to make some predictions. And that's what we're teasing to. That's what we got coming up this week. Some additional content for everyone. I know that we typically broke this down in episodes, but we're going to have a video and have them come out positionally where Maddie and I, now down to 6 teams, give you guys our top 3 fantasy players at each position. This is not best player. It's not that. This is who we think is going to finish at top 3 in their respective positions from a fantasy standpoint. And it's been fun. Obviously, last year the number 1 overall player was Joe Mono at the end of the year, and it's been fun to obviously break that down and see. The impact that he had after obviously people picked him so high the year before, him coming back here, Devon Rousseau not too far back at that. Maddie, if you had a guess, lastly, to end this segment here, for to give our viewers a little bit of a teaser to what they can expect in terms of some of the breakdowns from a fantasy sense when we give our top threes, who do you think was the number one? You're going to love this answer. Was the number 1 player in terms of points per match in 2025? Not total points, but points per match.
Probably Rousseau.
Final answer?
Sure.
Duncan Matthews at
Yeah, that sounds about right.
171.4 fantasy points in 12 total appearances for 14.28, a whopping almost 1 point higher than Joe Mono and Davey Kutzer, who comes second and third. But yeah, Duncan Matthews, I know you love that guy. I know
Mhm.
you'll be hunting him down in your drafts.
Maybe.
and he ends up on top there. But again, that's just a little sneak peek on the breakdown that's going to come here when Maddie and I give our top three predictions on the upcoming fantasy MLR season and the players we think are going to land in those spots.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to putting this together. Better take
All
notes.
right. Yeah, better take notes. Exactly. Get those stickies out and should be fun. All right, Maddie, you want to talk a little bit of betting to finish off the show?
Let's do it.
There we go.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, TFR Betting Challenge here. Got some Six Nations to talk about, got some Super Rugby to talk about as we start to warm up here for betting in MLR matches coming up, where Matt, Vandy, myself, and maybe even Andrew Coe now go head to head when it comes to some of these matches. So let's start off with Six Nations. Maddie, we got three matches on the docket here, as always.
Yeah, hold
We
on. We can't
start
just
off
gloss
with
over last week. We can't just gloss
oh,
over it. We
okay.
can't just
What do you have to say, Maddie?
nothing. I'm just saying, like, one told you so. All right. I'll start with that because Scotland comes out with a huge win against France. I called the under. Italy comes out with a huge win against England. Pretty sure I called the under, at least to cover. And I think Wales actually covered against Ireland, which I did not call. So, but look, Scotland, if you're on my side, just know you would have won.
All right. Well, let's talk about it. Let's see if you that streak continues here. We start off
It
with
won't.
Scotland here on Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Scotland at Ireland. Maddie, what's the line?
Yeah, Ireland's favored by 10 and a half.
10 and a half. No, Ireland is favored by 4.5.
Wow, I like that. I think Ireland can cover that for sure, but it's a tight year this year, so you never know.
All right. Then following that up at noon 40, Italy at Wales.
Italy favored by 6.5.
Italy favored by 3.5.
Wow, yeah, I'll take Italy on that one.
All right, pretty easy. Matt, you've been going back to back weeks, Maddie, where you've been going the favorites. You love the dogs in the past. Now it's all about those favorites. All right, let's see if that streak continues with our biggest spread in Six Nations for the weekend on Saturday at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Time. England at France. Tough weekend for England. They now have an even tougher weekend against a very, very strong France team. Maddie, what's the line?
Well, the French just lost to Scotland, so
That's true.
not the first time losing to the Queen. Um, yeah, I think France, but they're favored by 10.5 points.
15 and a half.
Yeah, I can see England covering that though.
Okay. Their first dog. First dog. All
Hmm.
right. So he's got Ireland, Italy, both favorites in that one covering, and then England at France, England covering that 15 and a half spread. Matt, which one do you love the most out of all those?
I
Ireland?
like Italy.
Italy covering at 3.5. All right.
Yeah,
Let's move on here, Maddie, to your favorite Super Rugby.
yeah,
Let's fly through these here.
yeah.
Starts
Let
on
me just
Friday,
call them out. I
Western
got it,
Force at
Ryan.
Hurricanes.
Ryan, Hurricanes force. Hurricanes favored by 12.5.
Canes favored by 20 and a half.
Yep, I don't touch that with a 10-foot pool.
Brumbies at
Drua,
Fiji and Drua.
yep. Brumbies favored by 17.5.
Brumbies favored Brumbies favored by 5.5.
I guess for Gia and Drew, I haven't really lost any close games. Yeah, I mean, I'd stay away from that. If it was a big line, I would have taken the Drew, but yeah, just stay away from that one. Crusaders, Highlanders.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, this is a close one. What? Crusaders favored by 2.5.
Crusaders by 9.5.
That's messed up. Yeah, Highlanders can cover that for sure.
All right.
I think
And then you
Highlanders
got
can definitely cover that. Reds versus Wartaws. The Taws favored by 5.5.
Wartaw's underdogs. Reds
Ooh.
favored by 6.5.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that one to call one for that one. So I'll stay away from that one.
All right. And then last
Blues
one, the
versus
lines that we have
Moana.
up to this point is Moana Pacifica at Blues, the last one we got at this time.
Yep, that's all we need. Blues favored by what, 25?
Blues favored. That's pretty close, Matt. 27.5.
Yeah,
You're more a
let's
Six Nations guy this week,
let's
aren't
throw
you?
let's throw Moana into the dogs today. And let's have them cover.
All right, which one you like the most? So you like the I figure the Highlanders one the most.
Yeah, I like the Islanders one. 9.5 is way
Highlanders
too
covering
much.
at 9.5. All right. Maddie likes Highlanders and Super Rugby and likes Italy covering in Six Nations. All right. Well, Maddie, hey, jam-packed episode. A lot of news in that one. A lot of um, what do you want to call it? Like very
Who cares?
non-fantasy related news, but stuff that we are going to see a difference here in this upcoming season.
Maybe.
Maybe we'll see. That's
Might
been
be different.
that's been the theme of this episode. It's been a whole lot of maybe, but I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I am an optimist, and I'm excited here for MLR 2026. Maddie, you pretty excited?
I'm excited for the season. That's for sure. I'm excited for the fantasy season. How
Music to
these
my
three
ears.
things that have been the news, I don't care.
Music to my ears. All right. Hey, that's why we have you on the show, Maddie. Uncensored, unforgiving, unrelenting. You're you. And that's what I love about you, Maddie. Either way, though, if you want to take on Maddie, whether it's in the weekly challenge, whether it's on in our fantasy leagues, any of that, hey, make sure you take part in Fantasy MLR this season. Again, I've said it again in this episode many times. I'll say it again. Sign up. Fantasy MLR 2026. Link down below. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a good time. And we got a whole bunch of new members, whether that's Andrew Coe, former MLR player taking part for the first time, to some huge rugby fans that will be taking part in the first time, or all the league members that we've had who have been with us for years on years on years, which we couldn't be more thankful for. It's going to be a great MLR 2026. Matt, anything left you out to say to the people?
Nope. Happy birthday, Lou.
Happy birthday, Louis. All right. For Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, for Louis Vanderpool, I'm Ryan Yee. We'll see you next time on another episode of the Fantasy Rucker Show.
Lou.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.